the Prime Minister.
It being 2 o'clock, I'm going to ask the member for Central Okanagan, Smilk Nicola, to hold that thought. It was a tough question, as he says, but perhaps he'll be able to answer that following when the House next discusses this subject, whether that's after question period, perhaps. Statements by members, déclaration de député, l'honorable député de
Honourable member from Ocam. Big week in Ottawa, Mr. Speaker. The federal government found a way of scorning the clearly expressed will of Quebecers 4 times this week, and it's only Thursday. No to the unanimous request of the National Assembly to ban knives of less than 6 centimeters on planes. No to the unanimous request of the National Assembly to delay cannabis legalization by a year. No to the unanimous request by the National Assembly to obtain our fair share of shipbuilding contracts for Davie shipyards and to help the 600 workers who might lose their jobs by next week. No to Quebec's request to have its fair share of the Accessible Housing Fund. No, the government prefers to play petty politics on the backs of the less wealthy. And Mr. Speaker, that's just 4 days in the life of Canadian federalism. Do you understand why we would rather keep our tax money at home?
The honourable member for South Shore, St. Margaret's.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to recognize an outstanding municipal councillor in my riding of South Shore, St. Margaret's. Lee Noss just celebrated his 50th year as a municipal councillor in the municipality of the District of Lunenburg. First elected in 1967, Lee has won 16 consecutive elections since then. He is the longest-serving politician in Nova Scotia and certainly one of the longest-serving municipal politicians in Canada. Lee has been a driving force behind many initiatives in our area, including the solid waste facility, a new hospital, the new Riverview Enhanced Living Care Facility, new schools, and a new lifestyle centre. As every member of this House knows, public life doesn't just affect those elected to office, but also their families. So to Lee's wife, Margaret, and his family, thank you for sharing him with his community. I ask all members of this House to join me in congratulating Lee and wishing him all the best for the next 50 years.
Bravo!
The honourable member for North Okanagan, Shuswap.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This past Tuesday, debate on my private member's bill, C-365, began, and I thank all members who contributed to the debate. Bill C-365 proposes support for Canadian firefighters who stand ready to answer the call of duty 365 days a year. Firefighters depend on their equipment to do their job, and Bill C-365 seeks to provide specific denunciation and deterrence of mischief or theft related to firefighting equipment. Momentum for Bill 365 is building, with broad support received from firefighters, fire chiefs, fire prevention officers, their national associations, and the public. I'm truly grateful for this support. We all have an opportunity to support this initiative. I invite all Canadians to support our firefighters and this bill by signing online e-petition E1373 on the House of Commons website. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Melcorel-Fortin. Mr. Speaker, this year marks the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Vimy Ridge, and we must continue to honour the memory of our men and women in uniform. 99 years after the signing of the armistice, I rise here in this House as a former officer of the Royal Canadian Air Force Cadets, as member of the Standing Committee on National Defence, and as member for Melcorel-Fortin. I invite all of us here to acknowledge throughout the year the contribution of the men and women in our Canadian Armed Forces to our society, not just in November, Mr. Speaker. I would like to emphasize that it is just as important to pay tribute to those who are not deployed, but who enroll in our armed forces with the same desire to serve their country and their fellow citizens. On behalf of my colleagues in this House, our veterans, and the members of our forces, I say thank you. The honourable member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, In neighborhoods throughout Quebec, we're preparing our future, and I couldn't be any prouder of representing Longueuil-Saint-Hubert and its people. We want to attract the best businesses in the world in aerospace and transport electrification. We like to see our people demonstrating for change, for affordable housing, to be able to use the beautiful bike paths by the Jacques-Cartier without the noise of aircraft overhead. In my riding, we want to be able to have access once again to the banks of the St. Lawrence. We need Ottawa to be a real partner in terms of housing in a city like ours where more than 1/3 of children, I might say 1/3, live below the poverty line. But we saw yesterday that the federal government shows a condescending approach. It will decide instead of Quebecers what their priorities are. Citizens across Quebec have elected their municipal officials last year. Now it's up to Ottawa to join in the great ambitions of Quebecers for their cities.
For Kildonan, St. Paul.
Do you recognize me? No. Go ahead. Oh, sorry. Mr. Speaker, on November 16th, I stood at the grave of a great leader. 132 years ago, Manitoba leader Louis Riel was executed. Rejecting many protests, popular appeals, Prime Minister John A. Macdonald decided to hang him. His body was transported to St. Boniface, where his remains were taken to a cathedral cemetery at the head of a massive procession made up of the leaders and citizens of Manitoba. His grave, as well as his Winnipeg home and the Batoche National Historic Site, remained well-visited historic sites to this day. Louis Riel, first Premier of Manitoba, a father of Confederation, and Member of Parliament elected 3 times, but never allowed to take his seat in this chamber. We look forward to continuing to work with the Métis partners to build stronger relationships and better opportunities for Métis people. We are committed to walking the journey of reconciliation with you.
Honourable Member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Mr. Speaker, one of the greatest privileges that we have are serving others. Before my election as Member of Parliament for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex, and representing those people, I helped to represent the people of Lobo Township, Middlesex Centre, and the County of Middlesex. Mr. Speaker, the directors of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities have been in Ottawa this week, and we've had the opportunity to welcome many amazing municipal leaders. While the discussions cover many issues, we've had in my area, they raised the concerns of legalized marijuana and particularly infrastructure needs outside of large urban areas. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank Joanne van der Hayden, Mayor of Strathroy-Caradoc from Lambton, Kent, Middlesex, and all of the municipal leaders for taking the time to meet with us. Working together, listening to municipal concerns, we build a stronger nation.
The member for Miramichi, Grand Lake.
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to rise today to highlight some of the great men and women who live in my riding of Miramichi, Grand Lake. Last week, I was honored to award sesquicentennial pins to 20 well-deserving community leaders.
Those who were honored showed the true identity of Canada and its exceptional leadership qualities while contributing greatly to their community. I'm very honored to represent this group of diverse people who have given so much of themselves to their communities.
Honorees included volunteer firefighters, those involved with the Canadian Peacekeeping Veteran Association, local artists, authors, historians, immigrants, champion of the LGBTQ community, and 2 First Nation chiefs. Recognizing this fantastic group of Canadians was one of the greatest pleasures and privileges I've had since being elected, and I continue to be inspired by the constituents of Miramichi Grand Lake. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Good job, Pat. Honourable Member for Mississauga, Streetsville.
Mr. Speaker, this weekend is the 2nd annual Christmas in the Village Festival in Streetsville. Highlighted by horse and carriage rides, delicious food from local restaurants, fresh maple taffy treats, live music, and of course, a visit from Santa Claus himself. It will be a fun-filled weekend for the whole family. I personally look forward to taking part in the lighting of the Christmas tree in Streetsville Village Square, officially kicking off the holidays in the community. I also look forward to seeing so many of my constituents getting into the spirit of the season. Although the treasured annual parade will be missed this year, this weekend will be a great time for all in attendance. because as BIA Chair Todd Landner stated in a letter to me, nobody does Christmas like Streetsville.
The honourable member for Saskatoon Grasswood.
Mr. Speaker, the Grey Cup festivities are underway. Today we salute the Hall of Fame class from 2017. The players, Anthony Calvillo, a glorious 20-year career, 3 Grey Cup rings, all-time CFL, and pro football's leading passer. We salute Mike O'Shea, 16 years in the league, 3 Grey Cups, second all-time for defensive tackles. And we salute G. Roy Simon, 15-year career, 3 Grey Cups, the league's all-time leader in receiving yards. And we also salute Calvin Anderson, 8 seasons of rushing over 1,000 yards. The builder, Stan Swartz of Calgary, 5 decades of service in football. And we can't forget about Brian Towers, the all-time winningest coach in Canadian college football history. Brian from Saskatchewan won 3 Vanier Cups with the Huskies. He was part of that program as coach and player for over 3 decades. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Pickering-Uxbridge.
Mr. Speaker, last weekend I visited the Family Worship Center in Pickering to announce our government will be supporting their efforts to assist at-risk youth in our community through the Skills Link program. Through the leadership of Bishop Joseph Fisher, the Family Worship Center has spent over a decade supporting young people in my community. The Family Worship Center's program in my riding will help 30 at-risk but ambitious young people successfully navigate the job market, including pursuing entrepreneurship. A key part of our youth employment strategy, the Skills Link program, is helping young Canadians overcome barriers to employment. Most importantly, it's helping to break the damaging cycle of no experience, no job, and no job because of no experience. Together, we can ensure that every young Canadian, no matter their ethnicity or family income, has the opportunity to succeed and reach their full potential.
The honourable member for Newmarket, Aurora.
Mr. Speaker, thousands of football fans have descended on Ottawa for Canada's unofficial national holiday, the Grey Cup. What a way to celebrate the 150th anniversary of Confederation. Fans from across our great nation will gather to celebrate our game. Fans of the Lions, the Stampeders, the Eskimos, the Rough Riders, the Blue Bombers, the Ticats, the Argonauts, the Red Blacks, and the Alouettes all come together to celebrate Canadian football. A few of them may even have a beer or two. This annual Canadian tradition has seen it all. The Fog Bowl, the Mud Bowl, the Ice Bowl, the 13th Man, and a horse or two in a hotel lobby. To the Calgary Stampeders and to the Toronto Argonauts, congratulations and good luck in the 105th Grey Cup. And as a lifelong Argos fan, I look forward to the Grey Cup coming back to Toronto. Argos!
I wouldn't dare get in the middle of that one. The honourable member for Yorkton, Melville.
Mr. Speaker, I'm reminiscing today about my grandpa. At the age of 4, my grandpa would sit me down on the beautifully carved love seat they brought with them when they immigrated to Canada and dance for me. I'm so thankful they chose to immigrate to Canada. You see, I'm blessed to be his granddaughter today because my grandparents came to Saskatchewan in 1926, 5 years before the Stalin communist regime committed a horrific act of genocide known as Holodomor, or death by hunger in Soviet Ukraine. For years, this atrocity was covered up as 10 million Ukrainians died from brutal starvation. At its worst, 17 per minute, 1,000 every hour, 25,000 a day, exterminated by artificial famine. I'm thankful that in 2008, the Canadian government unanimously recognized this genocide, passing the Ukrainian Famine and Genocide Memorial Day Act. I'm thankful there's increased opportunity for young Canadians to learn the truth of this atrocity that continues to be a part of a painful history of our Ukrainian community in Canada and throughout the world.
The honourable member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, One of the human rights violations that is the most widespread is violence against women and girls. We're talking about over 1 woman in 3 who has suffered physical or sexual violence throughout her life. According to figures by the UN, 750 million women were married before the age of 18, and over 250 million underwent genital mutilation. The prevention of all forms of violence against women is essential. On 25 November, it will be the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. Therefore, I would like to thank the members of the Éclaircie Women's Centre who give tirelessly in order to help all women get through their suffering. I urge all my colleagues to thank these people who make a great difference in the fight to attain a sexual equality, gender equality. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Victoria.
I rise today to highlight the extraordinary work of leaders in Victoria, across Canada, and indeed the world, to raise awareness and to destigmatize and end gender-based violence. This Saturday is the UN International Day to End Violence Against Women. November 25th marks the start of 16 days of action. Activism against gender-based violence is part of the annual Orange the World campaign, orange being the color of hope and courage. I want to thank Rosemary O'Connell and Trudy Mole of Development and Peace Caritas Canada, and Phyllis Webster and Shirley Swift of the Victoria Grand Network for their advocacy to support women's organizations working for peace. In honor of their work and the UN Orange the World campaign, I am wearing orange today. 1 in 3 women experiences physical or sexual violence worldwide. Prevention is the key. Let's do our part to treat violence against women as a human rights violation and adopt laws and prevention programs so that violence against women and girls is ended in our lifetime.
The Honourable Member for York Simcoe.
On Sunday, all of Canada will be focused on our most important annual sporting event, the 105th Grey Cup. The much-storied Toronto Argonauts are underdogs, seeking to win a record 17th championship. The Argos won their spot through last-minute heroics in a come-from-behind win over Saskatchewan, sparing the Green Riders the uncomfortable awkwardness of being the Eastern team facing Calgary. The Argonauts, led by a youthful 38-year-old Ricky Ray, deliver when it counts. With stars like S.J. Green and Devere Posey, Marcus Ball, Martise Jackson, James Wilder, and York Simcoe's own Corey Watman on the line, the Double Blue are an exciting team to watch. We thank Argos owner Larry Tenenbaum for supporting the remarkable rebuilding led by Michael Copeland, Sarah Moore, Mark Tressman, and Jim Popp. Congratulations to new CFL Commissioner Randy Ambrosi for outstanding leadership and a great season. Let's all take in the great tradition, a deep part of our identity, a week-long party of fans from across Canada, capped off by the uniquely Canadian game, the Grey Cup. Let's go, Argos!
The Honourable Member for the Marie-le-Sud-Ouest Île-des-Sœurs. Mr. Speaker, every year, McGill Women in Parliament brings a group of between 35 and 40 young women from McGill University here for 2 unforgettable days. The goal of this nonpartisan program is to elicit interest among women in politics and to meet inspiring female politicians so that they can share their experiences and discuss their passionate work with these students.
McGill graduate, first man in that lineage, mind you. I sincerely hope this opportunity encourages these bright young minds to put their names on the ballot. The underrepresentation of women in politics is a well-known and systemic problem. Overcoming it requires the education and opportunities that McGill's Women in the House provides.
To all the young women from McGill who are here today, I wish them a very warm welcome.
And I hope to see one of you in these seats in 2019. Bravo.
Questions orales, oral questions. The Honourable Member for Milton.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Prime Minister's close friend, Stephen Bronfman, evaded paying taxes when he stashed away more than $60 million in sheltered offshore accounts. Now, when these revelations came to light a few weeks ago, the Prime Minister rushed to defend his top fundraiser, saying he was satisfied with the assurances that he received from Mr. Bronfman. We now know for certain that Bronfman was in fact directly linked to the trusts. Mr. Speaker, what assurances did Mr. Bronfman give to the Prime Minister? And is he still satisfied?
The Honourable Minister for National Revenue. The government is aware that this is an issue involving billions of dollars. We've invested nearly $1 billion in our last 2 budgets. The agency is using the information it receives through lists disclosed by countries that work with BEPS. That's why there have been hundreds of audits as well as criminal investigations linked to financial structures that are used abroad. The agency is looking at relationships between various agencies and will take the appropriate measures when it comes to the Paradise Papers. We continue to work for Canadians.
Well, Mr. Speaker, speaking of investigations, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister wasn't the only one to rush to defend Mr. Bronfman. The Liberal Party jumped on board, and in doing so, they actually misled Canadians because they said in their statement that Stephen Bronfman had no direct or indirect involvement whatsoever in the Colbert Trust. Now that we know the truth, can this minister confirm that Mr. Bronfman is now under one of the many investigations at the CRA?
The Honourable Minister for National Revenue. We are firmly committed to fighting tax evasion. It's funny to hear the Conservatives talk about the importance of fighting tax evasion when the last minister, a former minister, Mr. Blackburn, said publicly that it was not a priority of the Conservative government. We have 98 investigations abroad done in the last year. Or rather, under the Harper government, only 98 investigations were done. We have done hundreds. We have sent many investigations to criminal investigations. We did 335 last year, only 39 search warrants.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Canada Revenue Agency and the Minister have repeatedly promised an independent investigation into those evading taxes through the Paradise Papers have become apparent. The Prime Minister compromised this investigation when he waded into the Bronfman affair. He was so fast to exonerate his buddy, but the truth can no longer be denied. Will the Prime Minister allow the CRA to do their job and investigate his friend, or is this just another case of one rule for the Liberals and another one for the rest of us?
The Honourable Minister for National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, our government is firmly committed to fighting tax evasion and abusive tax avoidance. The tax system needs to be fair for all Canadians. I want to reassure my colleagues on the other side and the entire public that no one is above the law. I am very proud of the leadership of our country when it comes to how we've behaved on the international scene. Cooperation between tax entities includes the exchange of information, tax information, which is an essential component of ensuring the integrity of the Canadian tax system.
Louis Saint-Laurent.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, the Canadians have found out very bad news concerning the ethics of the Liberal Party. This morning, we found out that Stephen Bronfman, the Liberal Party's bagman, had invested in the Cayman Islands, and yet he said he had nothing invested there, and the Prime Minister said, I believe him, there's no problems. He's innocent. What has the Prime Minister done once again to defend his bagman? The Honourable Minister for National Revenue. Our government has taken concrete measures over the last 2 years to fight tax evasion. Nearly $1 billion have been invested, Mr. Speaker, to fight tax evasion. And I find that these accusations are entirely ridiculous, and I'm not going to comment any particular cases. The law does not allow it, and my colleagues on the other side know it full well. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, what is ridiculous is that the Minister of National Revenue says she cannot comment, but the Prime Minister commented it, and he is her boss. That's ridiculous. The Minister is an honourable woman. Can she get up and reassure Canadians that Bronfman's case is going to be studied as it should be? The Honourable Minister for National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, our government is firmly committed to fighting tax evasion, and the government, as well as the Canada Revenue Agency, are going to deal with all of the cases in the same way. At the Revenue Agency, we have 30 million statements that come in every year at the agency. We are working on Canadians' tax base. Every case has been treated the same. No one is above the law. The Honourable Member for Rimouski, Neige-Témiscouata, Les Basques. Mr. Speaker, when Stephen Bronfman was named in the Paradise Papers, he said, hand on heart, that the last time he was involved was 1998, whether it be directly or indirectly. And yet, it was revealed today that he was still linked to a trust in the Cayman Islands in 2005. Here's a very simple multiple-choice question. A, Bronfman lied to the Prime Minister, or B, the Prime Minister misled the House? Is it A or B? The Honourable Minister for National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, I am very proud of the role that the Canada Revenue Agency has played internationally. We have worked with tax administrations and exchanged tax information. This is an essential tool to protecting the integrity of the Canadian tax base. That is why the agency has more than 990 audits, many criminal investigations linked to structures abroad, and as of the end of September, we continue to work on the tax system for all Canadians. Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member for Rimouski, Neige-Témiscouata, Les Basques.
To our own facts, but let's get through the facts. The Paradise Papers initially revealed that Stephen Bronfman had ties to a trust in the Cayman Islands. Bronfman denied it, and he said that he gave a loan that was quickly paid back by 1998. Well, that was false, because today we learned that as of 2005, there was still $7 million outstanding on that loan. The government seems to be very content to buy and to accept whatever fishtail that their well-connected friends cook up. When will this minister understand that Canadians are fed up with this double standard?
The Honourable Minister for National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, no one is above the law, and no one is interfering with the CRA's investigations. Honourable Member for Beloeil-Chambly.
Myself, having participated in a planned hacking of my cell phone as part of a CBC Radio-Canada report, Canada's networks are vulnerable. Phone conversations can be listened to and movements tracked. Every Canadian could be a potential target, from elected officials to business people. And while telecom companies have the capacity to beef up their security, what we need is leadership and legislation from this federal government. Right. So will the minister finally take Canadians' privacy seriously and modernize our laws?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, this matter falls under the jurisdiction of CSE, the Canadian Security Establishment, and they indeed have worked very, very closely with industry, including the service providers, to make sure that they have the advice and the knowledge that they need to correct the problem and to ensure that the safety of Canadians the privacy of Canadians is secured. And if the telecoms need a little bit more encouragement, we'd be pleased to give it to them.
The Honourable Member for Beloeil-Chambly.
Nation falls on the responsibility of this government and the House of Commons, and that's what we're asking the minister to review and modernize.
Although I appreciate his intentions and his fine words, they are not actions, whether it be Equifax, Uber, and even the Revenue Agency. Canadians' privacy is often in a precarious situation. We need legislation that demands transparency and imposes fines. We are trailing far behind, Mr. Speaker. I ask the minister if he can commit today to reviewing legislation and finally modernizing the legislative framework to prevent security breaches and protect Canadians' privacy.
Mr. Speaker, indeed that work is already underway. A cyber review has been conducted over the last number of months. The House can expect to see at least 3 different initiatives coming forward in the weeks and months immediately ahead to establish a new policy framework, to provide a strategy that is geared to the 21st century, and a suite of initiatives that will ensure that Canada can be a leader in the forefront of the rest of the world. This is a vital area, and we do indeed take it seriously.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-Lérable. Mr. Speaker, on November 1st, the Prime Minister said sunshine is the best disinfectant. Canadians all know today that the Minister of Finance has put himself in a conflict of interest, that he made millions, which he is now trying to sweep under the rug. The Minister of Finance is the most influential minister of the country, and he took advantage of his privileged situation to increase his own wealth. He broke the bond of trust with 35 million Canadians. Will the Minister of Finance finally let the sun shine on his own personal finances, or will he continue to hide his many-numbered companies in the shadows? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As my colleague from Mégantic-Lérable knows, what is expected of any parliamentarian in this House, including ministers and everyone else, is to sit down with the Ethics Commissioner as soon as we get to Ottawa, as soon as we take office, and reveal their situation, which is what the Minister of Finance did, and then to discuss the best route to follow. The recommendation was to set up a conflict of ethics screen, which was considered to be the best course of action. Now the Minister has decided to go even further than the recommendations of the Commissioner and to continue his work for Canadians.
After the Paradise Papers revealed top Liberal fundraisers' connection to a Cayman Islands tax evasion scheme, he said, and I quote, "Stephen Bronfman had no other direct or indirect involvement whatsoever with the Colbert Trust," that trust being located in the Cayman Islands. We now know that that connection came in the form of a $7 million loan that was still in place as of 2005. Does the Prime Minister still believe that Mr. Bronfman has no connection to this trust?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister for National Revenue. Our government is aware of the fact that this is an issue of billions of dollars, and we've invested nearly $1 billion over the last 2 years. The agency is using the information it received through lists that were disclosed via its international partners through the BEPS program. We're talking about more than 37 partners. That's why the agency has more than 990 investigations, 42 criminal investigations linked to financial structures abroad, which were ongoing as of September 30th. We're looking at links with Canadian entities, and we are going to take appropriate measures.
When the original revelations about Stephen Bronfman's connections to a Cayman Islands tax haven came to light earlier this month, the Prime Minister said, quote, "We have received assurances that all rules were followed, and we are satisfied with those assurances." Is the Prime Minister still satisfied with the assurances that his top fundraiser followed all of the rules?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister for National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, his accusations are completely ridiculous. No one is above the law. No one is interfering in the agency's investigations. And the law applies to everyone. No one is above the law.
Member for Carleton.
Mr. Speaker, I think I just heard the Minister say that these allegations are completely ridiculous. Her job is to ensure that her department conducts these investigations totally objectively. But she has now predetermined the outcome by declaring that the allegations are ridiculous. Mr. Speaker, how can Canadians have any assurance that there will be an honest investigation into Mr. Bronfman when both the Prime Minister and the Minister have declared him not guilty?
The Honourable Minister for National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, contrary to the previous government, when a former Minister for National Revenue, Mr. Jean-Pierre Blackburn, publicly said that the Conservative government did not make this a priority, whereas for us, it is a priority. We've invested nearly $1 billion. I have already said, I will repeat, and I thought it was very clear what I said in French. Nobody is interfering in the agency's audits.
Mr. Speaker, the minister has not retracted her comment. She seemed to suggest in her earlier answer that the allegations were completely ridiculous. Well, Mr. Speaker, those allegations have not even been investigated yet by her department. We have new revelations from the Paradise Papers suggesting a link between Mr. Bronfman and this potentially illegal tax haven. How could the minister possibly think it appropriate for her to stand and exonerate him before her department has even had a chance to conduct this investigation?
The Honourable Minister for National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, no one is above the law, and my colleague knows very well that I cannot comment any individual case on the 30 million people who produce an income tax statement.
Order. Alors, l'honorable ministre de National.
The Honourable Minister for National Revenue has the floor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We understand that this is a hot topic for our colleagues on the other side, given that it was not a priority for them under the former government to deal with tax evasion, that is, whereas we have decided that it is a priority and we've invested $1 billion. We're looking at 4 jurisdictions per year. We have criminal investigations ongoing.
Mr. Speaker, I'm looking for an assurance here. Will the minister assure Canadians that neither she nor the Prime Minister will stand in the way of an investigation by her department into Mr. Bronfman?
The Honourable Minister for National Revenue. Mr. Speaker, it will be my pleasure to reassure my colleague on the other side and to repeat that no one is above the law and that no one, as I have said, no one will interfere in the investigations and audits led by the Canada Revenue Agency. I hope that my colleague is reassured.
Honourable Member for North Island, Powell River.
Yesterday, the Liberal government finally announced its housing strategy. But, Mr. Speaker,
Order. The Honourable Member for North Island, Powell River has the floor, and I will allow her to restart, if she likes, without the applause.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, the Liberal government finally announced their national housing strategy. Mr. Speaker, you'd be right to be confused, because earlier this month, when my bill on the right to housing was voted on, every single Liberal voted against it. In fact, the member of Cambridge called the right to housing, quote, a legal risk. And the member from Spadina, Fort York, called the right to housing, quote, a slogan. For the NDP, the right to housing is never a partisan issue. So why did this government vote against it?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Social Development.
Believes that every Canadian deserves a home that is safe, that is affordable, that is adequate. We want every Canadian to live somewhere that feels like home so that everyone has the equal chance to succeed in this country. Our $40 billion commitment over the next 10 years is historic. It's the longest and largest investment in public housing in the history of this country. It's framed in a human rights approach, which has now been praised by the United Nations as groundbreaking on the international scale. And I will read you a quote quickly. Congratulations, well done. Heck of an accomplishment on housing. Joe Cressy, that's the NDP candidate I defeated to get in this place.
Order.
Order. Order. Alors.
Order.
L'honorable député d'Hochelaga.
The Honourable Member for Hochelaga. Mr. Speaker, it's confirmed. The government has once again done things all wrong and are just blowing smoke. And it didn't make the government of Quebec very happy. When you have no agreement with partners as important as the provinces and you extend only a quarter of the amount you announced, you can't brag and say that $40 billion has been invested in housing. What nonsense. Will the government listen and respect asymmetrical federalism, or once again will it impose its decision? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you very much for the question. Consultation is the first responsibility of our department.
This question says we're going too slow, and now they said we went too fast. I don't understand. But let me tell you what we're doing. We're serving Canadians through a rights-based approach. There will be 385,000 people who will see their subsidies renewed. There will be close to 500,000 Canadians who will receive rent subsidies so they can now live in affordable and safe housing of their choice. There will be more than 100,000 people who will see new housing units built in the next 10 years, and close to 300,000 units will be repaired. This is the best policy a government of Canada has ever produced, and I'd be happy to walk her through her riding to show where it's going to make real change.
The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, every day brings its lot of bad news for the Liberals when it comes to the Minister of Finance's conflicts of interest. The most ironic thing in all this is that the Minister of Finance keeps saying we're attacking him personally, which is absolutely false. What we want to know, what Canadians want to know, is what are the other conflicts of interest that the Minister of Finance might be involved in with his many investments in numbered companies. Can the Minister of Finance disclose all of his assets, and that way Canadians will be able to trust him? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The member for Beauce has been sitting here long enough to know that the institution charged with preserving integrity of Parliament is the Ethics Commissioner. The Minister of Finance has always worked with the Ethics Commissioner by presenting his situation and by following the recommendations made for him. And he's going even further by putting his assets in a blind trust and by divesting himself of shares in Morneau Chapelle. He's been working hard for 2 years to make sure that Canadians are looked after. He has helped 300,000 children get out of poverty. He has helped with a new housing strategy. That's what the Minister of Finance has been doing for the last 2 years. The Honourable Member for Beauce. Mr. Speaker, we all know that the Minister of Finance works with the Ethics Commissioner after the fact, after getting caught, and instead of disclosing his villa in France, he also forgot and tried to hide through a numbered company assets in his own family company. The Minister of Finance may be working with the Ethics Commissioner, but it's after getting caught, after the fact. We do not have any trust in the Minister of Finance when it comes to his assets. And we would like for today, we have a motion before the House to make sure that we get an idea of all of the Minister's assets to ensure there is no more conflict of interest. Will the Minister disclose his assets to Canadians? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. As I mentioned, the institution responsible for preserving the integrity of Parliament is the Ethics Commissioner, and the Ethics Commissioner is the one that the Minister of Finance has always worked with in order to respect the rules that we have to follow in this House. And he has put up a conflict of interest screen, and he recently announced that he would take additional steps by divesting himself of shares in Morneau Chapelle and by putting assets in a blind trust. He has been working in that direction in order to continue the important work for Canadians.
Bruce Wayne said, "It's not who we are underneath, but what we do that defines us." And the finance minister is defined by his conflict of interest. For 2 years, he held Morneau Chapelle shares in a company that he both regulated and owned. There was no blind trust, there was no sign-off from the Ethics Commissioner, and now he's under investigation yet again. So will the finance minister finally open up the curtains and let the light shine in, or is he content to continue to keep Canadians in the dark night?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of the Ministry of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, if it's true that we're defined by what we do and perhaps by what we don't do, what the finance minister hasn't done is mismanage the economy the way they've mismanaged it for 10 years. And what he has done is create 500,000 jobs in this country, most of them full-time, grow the economy at a faster pace than they ever could, reduce child poverty by 40%, reduce taxes for 9 million Canadians, go back on regressive policies that they put forward, such as doubling the TFSA limit that would benefit to the 3% of wealthiest Canadians so that we can give more to most Canadians who need it the most. And yesterday we announced a national housing strategy that they should have done a long time ago. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Chilliwack Hope.
Bruce Wayne also said that everything is impossible until somebody does it. Right now it seems impossible for the finance minister to admit that he was in a conflict of interest. It seems impossible for him to even acknowledge that he's under investigation from the ethics commissioner yet again. So why won't the finance minister do what up until now has been impossible for him, be the hero that Canada needs now, and reveal all of the assets that he's been hiding in his other private numbered companies?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, what was impossible for them to do for 10 years is grow this economy. Remember 2 years ago we were debating, are we in the recession or heading into a recession? No one's asking that question now, Mr. Speaker, because Canada's economy is growing at the fastest pace in the G7. It's putting other countries to shame. They're looking with envy at Canada because of the work of this finance minister. He's done this while reducing inequalities in this country, something that never occurred was a good thing to them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals completed 3 rounds of preliminary discussions for a free trade agreement with China. And according to the media, the Prime Minister is planning to go to China by the end of the year. But this is despite serious concerns about the human rights situation in China, about their lax labor laws, threats to Canadian intellectual property, and many more issues. Why are the Liberals rushing ahead to get a free trade agreement with a government like China? The Honourable Minister of International Trade. Mr. Speaker, our government has a progressive, strategic, and rules-based trade agenda in Asia-Pacific to create new opportunities while keeping our values at the heart of what we do. This market represents a good plan for growth. Canadians expect us to discuss responsibly with China, and that is exactly what we're doing, Mr. Speaker. We're doing this for Canadians across the country.
For Essex.
China has no free press. Torture is widespread. Workers do not have a right to collective bargaining. Businesses are worried about their intellectual property rights, and hundreds of human rights defenders and dissidents have been detained. China does not even have market economy status, which means we cannot possibly have a level playing field in a trade deal. The Liberals won't even stand up to unfair steel dumping from China that's costing jobs in our steel industry right now. How can Canadians possibly trust that this government will defend Canadian values and jobs in any new trade negotiations with China?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, I can tell you that the world has seen that Canada will always stand up for Canadians when it comes to trade negotiation. They saw that in Asia last week. Our government believes in rule-based, progressive, and a strategic trade agenda throughout the Asia-Pacific that helps create new opportunities for Canadians across this country. To dismiss the enormous potential that this market represents for our middle class is unrealistic and is not a plan to grow the economy or engage with this dynamic region. Mr. Speaker, farmers, workers across this nation expect this government to engage in trade in a progressive fashion and inclusive fashion. That's exactly what we're going to do.
Honourable Member for Brampton South.
Mr. Speaker, over the last few weeks, as the chair of All-Party Diabetes Caucus, I have heard concern from Canadians and stakeholders regarding access to the disability tax credit and type 1 diabetics. I appreciate the time the Minister of National Revenue and her Parliamentary Secretary took to meet with me to discuss the situation and to allow me to share the concerns I have heard. Can the Minister of National Revenue inform this House on the steps she is taking to make sure that the Canadians with the disabilities have their concern heard by the CRA?
The Minister of National Revenue.
Monsieur le Président, je remercie. Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for Brampton South for her question and for her hard work for her citizens. Our government is committed to ensuring that our government takes measures to ensure that persons with disabilities have transparent and accessible access to the credits they need. I'm proud to announce the Advisory Council for Persons with Disabilities. It was dissolved by the former Conservative government, and by restoring this council, we will benefit from better advice concerning making services to persons with disabilities more accessible. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, through the media, we've learned that the information that the minister gave yesterday about ISIS combatants actually dates back to 2015. The minister misled the House. He said that our security services were keeping an eye on the terrorists who had returned to Canada, but that's false. Our security forces are not able to say how many traitors to this country are free or where they are. Can the minister be honest with Canadians and give us the truth?
Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, indeed, the statistics that I gave were accurate. Canada works constantly with all of our allies, the Five Eyes, G7, Interpol, and others to know as much as possible about every threat. Our Canadian agencies constantly assess and reassess all the data to be effective and current in keeping Canadians safe, and they respond with a suite of measures, including investigations, surveillance, marshalling evidence, lifting passports, no-fly listings, threat reduction initiatives, criminal proceedings whenever possible. Our agencies do their job for Canadians 24/7, 365, and they do it extremely well.
Honourable Member for Charlebois-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, I'm not questioning the work of our security agents. They're the best in the world. But what I'm questioning is what the minister is saying in this House. The minister is an intelligent, well-informed man, so why is he misleading this House when he knows that the information he gave us yesterday is 2 years old? The numbers that he gave are taken from the CSIS director's comments from March 2016. The minister needs to wake up and take the situation seriously and inform Canadians. We want to know where these traders are and if they're being monitored 24/7.
The Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, now for about the fourth or fifth time, the fact of the matter is the information, the statistics that I have cited in this House are accurate. The numbers today remain essentially the same as they were 2 years ago.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Well, Mr. Speaker, yesterday the minister said that anyone who needs to be under surveillance is indeed under surveillance, and then gave the number of 60, but the minister's own office said that this number came from a 2-year-old report, so I guess it's accurate as of 2 years ago. How can the minister claim to be surveilling all ISIS fighters in Canada if he's using 2-year-old data and saying it's accurate? Is he claiming that no new terrorists have entered Canada in the last 2 years? Or is he admitting that there are terrorists here that he's no longer watching?
The Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the objective of the Government of Canada with respect to extremist travellers is to surveil them and contain them to ensure that they do not harm more people and indeed...
Order. I would ask the honourable member for Battle River Crowfoot and others not to interrupt when someone else has the floor. The Honourable Minister of Public Safety has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, the objective of the Government of Canada is to surveil them and contain them to ensure that they do not harm more people and indeed bring the full force of Canadian justice against them for fighting for a terrorist organization. And I know the member for Calgary Nose Hill must agree with those words because that is what she herself said word for word in this House last night.
Honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the point that I have against the minister here and the question that I have for him is that he's saying that these figures are accurate, but he won't give the date as of when they're accurate.
2-year-old, Ralph.
These are 2-year-old numbers, so he's standing up and saying that all of these people are under surveillance, but he won't give the number of people that are in Canada that have come in over the last 2 years. So very simply, how many people in this situation have come in over the last 2 years, and how many are under 24-hour surveillance?
Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the fact of the matter is the number released by CSIS 2 years ago was in the order of 60, and they have confirmed that that number remains essentially the same today. Whenever the security and police forces of our country recognize a threat, they take all appropriate measures to deal with that threat, Mr. Speaker. It would have been helpful in these circumstances if the previous government hadn't cut $1 billion from those services.
Order. The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Seasonal workers are mobilizing, and tomorrow hundreds of them will call out this government's inaction in solving the problem of the black hole in employment insurance. And yet the Liberals had promised to help seasonal workers, but after 2 years, nothing's happened. In just a few months, workers and their families from the North Shore and all across Canada will have no income for several weeks. This is unacceptable. Why do seasonal workers still have to wait for a solution? Honourable Minister of Employment.
Committed to ensuring that Canadians get the support when they need it. The series of changes that we've put into place to improve the EI program are benefiting Canadians across the country. More flexibility, more fairness, a better service are what Canadians elected us for, and we are delivering. We're going to continue our work to ensure sound stewardship and accountability of the EI system while making it more simple and equitable for Canadian workers. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Port Moody Coquitlam.
The National Energy Board ordered Kinder Morgan to stop installing plastic anti-salmon spawning mats in 8 BC rivers, but 2 months later, these mats are still in place.
Oh my.
The Liberals need to enforce the law under the Fisheries Act and stop Kinder Morgan from wrecking salmon habitat. Our record low wild salmon returns will only get worse until this government starts taking meaningful action to save wild salmon. When will the minister enforce the law and stop Kinder Morgan from damaging critical salmon habitat?
Honourable Minister of Fisheries.
Mr. Speaker, my colleague knows that this government is working very hard to protect wild salmon stocks in his province. In fact, we're investing record numbers, Mr. Speaker. We're investing record amounts of money in marine and ocean science. We have a $1.5 billion ocean protections program. My colleagues from British Columbia have talked to us constantly about world-class organizations like the Pacific Salmon Foundation. We will continue to do everything we need to do to protect wild salmon stocks in British Columbia.
Member for Durham.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, NAFTA is in crisis. This morning, an expert said that NAFTA is like a sinking ship. After 5 months and 5 rounds of negotiations, when will the minister admit that the plan isn't working? And when will the minister start fighting for jobs instead of only fighting for her ideology or his ideology? Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
One of Canada's strengths in this difficult negotiation has been our ability to rise above petty partisan politics and to all play for Team Canada. Having said that, Stephen Harper has recently proposed a different approach. And so I would like to take this opportunity to ask my honourable colleague to let his former boss know that this government's view is that capitulation is not a negotiating strategy.
Honourable Member for Durham.
Mr. Speaker, I'm working hard to make sure that that minister can return to asking the questions, but right now I'm asking the questions, Mr. Speaker. After 5 months and 5 rounds of negotiations, NAFTA is at risk. The Prime Minister likes to suggest his strength is his progressive agenda, but in Washington, the minister tells our stakeholders that those will be non-enforceable, non-binding measures, Mr. Speaker. So why is Canada putting non-binding priorities forward when they should be fighting for softwood, for auto, for agriculture, for the jobs that we need?
The Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, our negotiating position is clear in Canada and at the negotiating tables in the United States and Mexico. We will defend and maintain those elements of NAFTA which Canadians know are essential to our national interest. We're negotiating in good faith, and we expect our partners to do the same. A winner-take-all attitude is not the attitude of a good partner. I want Canadians to know that we will always defend the national interest and stand up for our values.
The Honourable Member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's unfortunate that the answers we're hearing from this minister are not about charting a course to national success. They're about attacking a former Prime Minister and cynically prepositioning Canada for failure. Now, we have always taken a constructive approach and tried to work with this government, and we've advocated for Canada's position. But rather than preemptively deliver talking points explaining their failure on NAFTA, we want to know when this minister will get serious and actually start fighting to protect the jobs of Canadian workers.
Honourable Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I want Canadians and all members of this House to know I take these negotiations absolutely seriously, as all Canadians expect of us. Now, we made some reasonable progress on some of the more technical chapters at the latest round, but significant differences remain. We will never accept extreme proposals that harm the national interest, and I know Canadians are with us.
Welcome, member for Cambridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canada's first ever national housing strategy was unveiled yesterday.
Yes. Bravo. Bravo.
As chair of the Human Resources Committee, I know the issue of housing has dominated our work and is the #1 issue in my riding of Cambridge.
Here, here.
The National Housing Strategy is a historic document for many reasons, including its recognition that every Canadian has the right to adequate housing. Could the minister responsible for housing explain this rights-based approach?
First honourable parliamentary secretary.
Housing rights
Werner.
and human rights, and I want to thank the member from Cambridge for drawing attention to this government's historic commitment to housing rights. Our commitment is grounded in the principles of accountability, participation, and of course non-discrimination. We'll be putting forward legislation that will require this government and future governments to maintain a national housing strategy now and into the future. We're establishing a community-based tenant fund for grassroots organizations so that people with lived experiences can help guide us through this process. We're creating a national housing council, appointing a federal housing advocate to ensure our policies are inclusive and accountable. We understand the importance of housing rights. We're matching our actions with words, but more importantly, our words are financed and funded. Let's get building.
The honourable member for Bellechasse-les-Échemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, while two of our ships, the Preserver and the Protector, are out of service, the Senate Committee on National Security and Defence has said that it is urgent for Canada to have 4 auxiliary oiler replenishment vessels to ensure proper replenishment of oil and equipment. And the Davie shipyard is finally ready to deliver on this urgent order. What is the government waiting for to immediately award the contract to build the second supply ship? This is a question of national security. The Honourable Minister of Public Services. Mr. Speaker, our government has reiterated its commitment to the national shipbuilding strategy. As is laid out in the strategy, a $2 billion agreement for the construction of ships is awarded through contracts to Davie and other Canadian shipyards, other than the ones selected to build large ships. The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, Liberals are continuing to beat records for incompetency when it comes to defending official languages. Media reports suggest it's increasingly difficult to get service in French at the border. The number of complaints is increasing every year, and the sad thing is it's not even surprising. The CBSA is a repeat offender in this area. There are recurrent problems. Has the Minister of Official Languages forgotten that it's her responsibility to guarantee bilingual services in all government agencies?
Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman has a very important point. The official languages law is a fundamental law of this country, and every Canadian government agency has the duty and obligation to ensure that that law is followed meticulously, and I will draw his question to the attention of the President of the CBSA.
The Honourable Member for Avignon-la-Métis-Matane-Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, this week is Education Savings Week. We know that Canada's prosperity depends on young Canadians' ability to get the skills and experience they need to succeed and move forward in their careers. Families with savings to allow their children to study have much better chances of seeing those children complete their studies and graduate with less debt. Can the Minister update us on what our government is doing to ensure that families can save for education for their children? The Honourable Minister.
I'd like to thank my colleague for their question. And this year, the 1 millionth child received the Canada Learning Bond, meaning 1 million Canadian families have had a head start for their child's education. Making post-secondary education more affordable for Canadians is critical for helping them find a good job in their future. And the Canada Learning Bond gives low-income families up to $2,000 to save for their children's future studies. We'll keep working to make sure that more Canadians than ever can access post-secondary education. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Milkman Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, over the past few months, the Liberals have demonstrated time and time again they are desperate for new revenue to pay for their reckless spending. Now, today, the PBO confirmed that the Finance Minister's tax changes will pull an additional $6 billion out of businesses over the next decade. Now, the Coalition for Small Business Tax Fairness has called for a full economic analysis to be released. Now, surely the minister has done this assessment. Will the minister now release this analysis so Canadians can learn how many jobs are at risk as a result of these changes, Mr. Speaker?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We welcome the Parliamentary Budget Officer's report. From the very beginning, he has supported the idea that 3% of Canadian businesses, private businesses, have more than 90% of passive investments in the country, and 97% of private corporations will not be impacted by these changes. Our objective is greater tax fairness, and that always has been our goal. The Honourable Member from Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, this morning on 98.5 FM, the Minister of Transport suggested that small knives don't pose any more of a threat on airplanes than a pillow that your seatmate could smother you with. But small knives are still on the ICAO's list of high-risk items, and pillows are not. According to the ICAO, there's no obligation to harmonize rules concerning high-risk items in airplanes. Will the minister finally admit that if he's allowing small knives on airplanes, he's strictly doing it to pander to his base? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, air safety is an extremely serious important. That's why experts within the government closely examined the question of small blades. Experts in other countries also came to the same conclusion. I'm talking about France, Germany, Great Britain, Portugal, Spain, Italy, New Zealand, Iceland, and many more countries. Mr. Speaker, we have done our homework. The Honourable Member from Montcalm. Mr. Speaker, the minister is about as successful as a pillow at making us fall asleep. According to the LCN, the Minister of Transport's office recently met with the Sikh community. As if by chance, they talked about curpans in airplanes. And, well, as if by chance, the World Sikh Organization subsequently applauded Transport Canada's decision. Does the Minister of Transport really think that allowing small knives in airplanes will improve airplane safety?
Minister of Transport.
Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, our decision was based on a periodic review of objects and items that may be allowed or not allowed on airplanes. Our goal is to ensure air safety. This has nothing to do with the interests of any particular interest group.
Now I believe the Honourable Member for Chilliwack Hope has the usual Thursday question.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and on behalf of the Leader of the Opposition in the House of Commons, I'd like to ask the Leader of the Government in the House of Commons what business will be in the House for the remainder of this week and for next week.
Honourable Government House Leader.
We will continue the debate we began this morning on the opposition motion from the Conservative Party. Tomorrow we will have the second and last day of debate at the third reading of Bill C-45 on cannabis. Next Monday, we will continue our debate on Bill C-59 regarding national security. After that, we will continue with the report stage for C-63 on the budget.
Bill C-63 on Tuesday. On Wednesday and Thursday, we shall take up debate on the Senate amendments relating to Bill S-3, the Indian Act, unless we can get it done sooner. I should also note that we will have the LGBTQ2 apology next Tuesday, November